What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Knives of the Round Table. My name is Marco, and today we're going to be taking a look at the Code 4 knife by Coldsteel. Now, Coldsteel is one of those companies that has kind of a cult following, and the people who follow this religion is because of their strength of their locks. Okay, Coldsteel, their biggest cult to fame is their locks. They have a series of locks that are considered the strongest in the industry, and I've seen several videos of people testing the locks, and it's a test usually that holds the handle and then pushes the blade, you know, in the trying to close it with the locking gauge, and then it measures the strength that it takes to get the lock to fail. And they've tested this one's called the triad lock, and it's kind of a lockback mechanism. And they've tested this one, and they've tested compression locks and axis locks and a whole bunch of locks. And this by far exceeds all of those, the strength of those locks. Now, I fall into the camp that, you know, the strength of a compression lock is sufficient for me, that the strength of an axis lock is sufficient for me. But if you need a lock that more closely approaches a fixed blade, then this might be the one for you. So let me give you kind of a tour of the knife of what we got here. So this blade, it's an S35VN. Yeah, right here, S35VN. It's not a small blade, okay? From right here, a little over 3.5 inches, sharpened blade length, probably 3¼ inches. So it's an okay steel, S35VN, especially at this price point. I think that's probably it's probably what you can expect. But it's a little bit weird because it's not a small knife, and I'll give you a comparison here. But overall size, you're looking 8.5 inches overall, and this falls under the smaller category for cold steels. They tend to be larger, thicker, bruiser blades, and this is kind of their slimmer version of the knife, and the smaller version of the knife. There's certainly, you know, the 4 Max, the Scout, all of those are even bigger and thicker and, you know, more heavy duty than this is. This one comes in 2 versions. This that you see here in this kind of drop point that you see, and there's a tanto version of the knife. It's hollow grind, so I'm gonna try and rotate it really slowly so you can see the hollow. There you go, right there, hollow grind. Which I think is very nicely done. You got significantly billboarding, so if that bothers you, then probably don't get this knife. You have, like I said, you have a thumb stud, you have a lockback mechanism that they call their triad lock. You have just a bent pocket clip, kind of similar to a Spyderco pocket clip, especially with the three screws holding it down. And you have aluminum frame. So that's kind of what you have. So let me give you a size comparison here. So this is against the Para 2, and here it is against the Para 3. So as you can see, this is a fairly large knife, you know, because it dwarfs even, I mean, the handle of the Para 2 is considered fairly generous, and as you can see, even that, if I line up, it's even larger than that. Obviously the blade is larger than the Para 2, so it's a fairly large knife. But where this one is kind of unique is that it is very thin. So if I show you in that direction, you can see that the thickness of the Code 4 is significantly smaller than the thickness of the Para 2. In thickness, and I'll show you in the side view as well. In thickness, it's kind of closer to the Bugatti, and the Bugatti is very thin. I mean, the Bugatti might even be thicker than the than the Code 4. So there's your size comparisons against the bug out and the mini bug out. So a very large knife, but very thin. It's a little bit, you know, reminiscent of kind of what the Grimsmo Norseman is, with that you have kind of a, you know, a full-size knife, but in a very, very, very thin profile. So let's get into the review here in a little bit and start with ergonomics. And the ergonomics are actually very, very good. You know, it's for my hands, okay? So large glove, and, you know, for a 4-finger grip, I still have, you know, probably a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch here in the back. It really melts in your hand. In my hand, this knife feels very, very, very good. Even though it's thin, it's kind of taller in this direction, so it fills my hand. You know, the knife kind of, I don't feel like it disappears in my hand. It just melts into it, and it's very, very comfortable. What they've done is they've chamfered all of the edges. So even though it's a flat surface, it almost feels rounded just when you're holding it. Now, you do feel the edge, so there's chamfering from this face to this face, but not from the interior face to here. So sometimes you feel a little bit of that edge if you're really, really holding it hard. But for the most part, it is really, really comfortable in the hand, really, really nice ergonomics. Now, action, it's a little bit strange, because if you give it wrist, you can deploy it with the thumb stud opening. Mostly I think it's gonna be kind of a slow rollout, because what happens is this triad lock, it puts pressure on the blade. So it doesn't deploy as fast as you would deploy a pair 2 or a bug out or any of those. This lock puts more pressure, so it's not as fidgety as you might expect. And obviously for coming down, you know, for closing, look, you know, it's not a fidgety knife. Okay, so the strength of the lock comes with a drawback that the action is not fast. Okay, so this is a knife that you can do a one-handed operation for sure. You can open and close it one hand, but it comes at and it has a tremendously strong lock, but it comes at the cost of action. So this is not a knife that I would get if you're looking for something that is fidgety, something that is you know, fast one-handed opening. This is probably not the knife. Like I said, you can deploy it fast if you give it some wrist, but without wrist, there's just no way. There's no way to deploy it. I'm gonna try and do it without wrist here. You see, it gets to about right there, and that was me giving it like a significant push with my thumb. So action, not the greatest, but that's because of the lock. So like I said, Coldsteel has kind of a cult following for the people that like the very best of locks. And if that's what you want, then what's important to you is over here instead of the fidget factor of a blade, which makes it a better tool, just in my case, a less desirable collector item. So now cutting, it's fairly thick blade stock. Let me show you here against, in thickness, you can see here against the bug out. So almost twice the thickness of a bug out, and significantly thicker than the pair 2 and the pair 3. Okay, so because it has this blade, this very thick blade stock, it's not the greatest slicer when you're trying to push through material all the way up in the blade. When you're trying to cut through cardboard, that you have to slice all the way up to here. Now for shallow cuts, it's actually a little bit better, because then what you're cutting is just to about right here, right? When you're cutting leather, when you're cutting rope, when you're cutting those kinds of things that are just going to be to about right here, or when you're cutting cardboard but it's flat on a surface, then this is a good cutter because of the hollow ground. It comes to a reasonably thin edge, not the thinnest, but it comes to a decent edge for shallow cuts, for pushing through cuts. This is more of a heavy duty knife, and I think in general Coldsteels are more of a heavy duty knife. So I think that's the reason for the thicker blade steel, for the thicker stock. Now, fit and finish, I would say it's actually fairly good. It's you know, I think it's made overseas, yeah, Taiwan. But the fit and finish is actually decent. For the price, the aluminum construction, and the type of knife that it is, I think the fit and finish, I haven't found any glaring misses here. Mostly, I mean, it's part of the design, but I think the edge here it's a little bit sharper than the sharper on the aluminum scale. So I think overall fit and finish is actually very good for this price range. Obviously, it's not a Chris Reeve, it's not a Rikinder, it's not even a zero tolerance, but for the price that you pay at this price point, I think it's actually fairly good. Now, my airing of grievances, it has to do with the locking mechanism. I understand having a stronger lock appeals to some people, but for me, I'd rather have you know, a locking mechanism kind of what you have here, or a frame lock, or most other mechanisms that allow to have a fast action. And if you ever need stronger than that, then probably you're looking at a different tool, right? This is the SE3, and the SE3 is considered a small blade for fixed blades, but you have a fixed blade that kind of matches, you know, a sharpened blade length is very similar to that, but it's a fixed blade, and I don't care how strong they say that this locking mechanism, it's not stronger than a full tang blade construction. So I think, you know, if you're gonna be using a tool that requires that strong lock, you probably should be using this one, you know. So that's kind of my take on the whole, you know, strong locking mechanisms. I understand that it appeals to some people, and if you enjoy those, then more power to you. That's where you spend your money. But for me, I prefer to have a more fidgety knife that still provides the locking that more than enough locking mechanism. Even that one or this one provides more than enough locking mechanism for what I need. And if I get into a situation where I need more than that, then I'm probably picking up my fixed blades. That's just my 2 cents. That's kind of where I'm at with the locks. I think it's a decent knife if you need a hard use knife, something with no frills, you know, something where that you're gonna be putting it through a rough time, and you don't want to take, you know, when you have one of these, right, and you don't want to scratch up the blade, or you know, you like it a lot. Well, if you want something that you don't have to worry about, then this is kind of a good knife to have, you know, if you're gonna be, you know, going into a construction job site and you're gonna be using it, you know, having something that is more, how should I say, hard use, disposable, because this one you can replace fairly easily. So that's kind of the role that it's gonna fill for me if I'm going to a job site, and I'm gonna have and I'm worried about scratching up a nice knife, you know, because I do have nice knives in my collection. Then I'll put this one in my pocket and not worry about it. Well, guys, hopefully this is useful to you. If it was, and if I earned it, only if I earned it, I like to ask for a subscription towards the end of my videos, even though I know that maybe not a lot of you are watching by now. But I like to request that you should like and subscribe only after I have earned it. So if I have, then like and subscribe. Don't hit the notification button. If you like my videos, you know where to find me. Come see me when you want. Until I see you at the next one, take care.